So the BIS magazine, what does it
Yeah.
have to say this time? Does it have to say Elon Musk finally made it to Mars last month?
No, it doesn't mention Elon Musk, but it mentions Buzz Aldrin and the launch of Apollo 16 and 17 are described, and some of it may be science fiction, but I wonder which bits. It's called Odyssey. It's a BIS publication, online publication. Just received it today, and I thought, well, you might like to take a look at it as well, see what you think. It's the imagination to reality bit, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
There's some mention of Apollo, which is the main reason.
I see the news agency, I believe it was CBS, they put that image of Gene Cernan up instead of James Lovell.
Oh dear.
So somebody really screwed that one up.
I wonder how long it'll take for them to work it out.
It's still up there like that.
Really? Perhaps they thought Gene Cernan was a more respectable astronaut because he actually allegedly walked on the moon, rather than Jim Lovell, who went twice and didn't manage to land on Apollo 8 and 13.
James Lovell seemed to be a jinx to the whole program.
They certainly live to a ripe old age, these astronauts, don't they? Was he
Yes.
97?
That's because if they would have really gone through the Van Allen belts, they wouldn't be 97 years old.
Well, we know that. They
Well,
probably knew that, but they couldn't make a public announcement about it.
maybe space radiation preserves you better. It's different than the radiation on Earth. Don't they describe it as being different all the time?
Different frequency, I think it is.
Different than what we put out in our nuclear power plants, which is a much cleaner radiation. They're involved in cosmic radiation, and the stuff coming from the sun's flares these days are pretty dramatic.
Yep, that's true. Look at the effect those have on Earth as well.
Oh, look at the volcanoes that they're creating.
Let's not mention the Carrington event again, shall we?
Yeah, imagine if we had one.
Well, it could happen. There's no way we can stop it if it does either.
You know, the irony of all of that is that they'll be out protecting every major corporation to protect their properties. They'll be shooting people when they need something to eat or to keep them warm or to get whatever, right?
Let's take a look at that food drop that they sent over there. The Canadians, I believe, dropped all that food out of that aircraft for all those starving people. I believe in the Gaza Strip or somewhere down there. Then that's exactly what happened. As soon as those packages landed, people rioted. The people that really needed the food couldn't get it, and they were swinging machetes and sticks and little bats and just beating the snot out of each other.
Well, you
Come-
imagine a Carrington event taking
Yeah.
down all of our banking systems, for instance. You can't buy anything, and nobody's going to give it to you. You have no way to buy the goods and services that you need to stay alive. No record of your income or accounts or anything, all wiped out. Wealthy people are equal to those people living. Actually, the people that are currently living on the street would survive much better than anybody that's pushed onto the street.
That's a good point.
They know what's going on. They've got their little tent cities and stuff to survive, right?
And those uncontacted tribes in the Amazon and all over the world, they'd survive because they wouldn't know they weren't supposed to. They just carry on as normal.
Right. And everybody else is trying to plug their Tesla car in. There's no power.
No.
And they wouldn't be able to go anywhere because their phones don't work. They can't even contact anybody. Imagine that. How
And
isolated people would be all of a sudden.
CBS Chicago really came up a cropper on this one because they have Gene Cernan's thumbnail in James Lovell's picture. So they've got them mixed up, and they think that Gene Cernan is Jim Lovell, and they still haven't fixed it yet. And as a lot of people are putting down here, wrong picture, that's not Jim Lovell in the thumbnail. Chicago, we have a problem, wrong pick. Jarrah White started this off. So it was Jarrah that started this whole show going here.
Oh, good for Jarrah.
As a matter of fact, that's all that there is. Wrong photo, that's Gene Cernan, not Jim Lovell. Chicago's thumbnail shows different astronaut. Abort, abort, abort. Yeah, they can't even get that right.
Wrong pick. Yeah.
Wrong photo. That's Gene Cernan, not Jim Lovell. And Jim was from Chicago area, and you can't even get that right. Rest in peace, Jim. You were a real hero.
Well, that shows you exactly how much attention this generation is paying to historic media events, right?
Good old Jet. I like it that Jared's come up with that.
The next link in that, when you look underneath the videos, right, at least they got the right one. And Wikipedia put a blue box up on a NASA site, put a warning up. That's crazy.
You'd think they'd be able to work out where Jim Lovell came from, wouldn't you?
His mother.
Oh no, don't give the news agencies any ideas, Scott, because that will be next.
But even when they're faking it, they can't make the guy walk on the moon.
No.
Yeah, 97's a ripe old age.
It is, isn't it? He's done well.
Even though he wasn't out there, he was still orbiting around for all those days in that radiation.
Yeah.
Pickled him real good. Yeah, it's just unbelievable that all of these projections that we have going on this vehicle traveling here and there and everywhere else, and they're going to, put a manned orbit around the moon, and what's that supposed to be, February now or something? They claim they have all of the vehicles ready. Well, where are the 11 or 12 launches for all the fuel that they need? I still can't get over how come it takes 6 days to get to the moon.
That's a long way.
It took 3 before. That was the most efficient way to do it. And now it's 6 days all the time. Did the moon get farther away?
Yeah, if it's going to take that many refuels, I don't know why it didn't take that many refuelings back in the 60s. That doesn't make sense. I mean, let's take a look at the size of that rocket. That Saturn V was massive.
Yeah, carried thousands of gallons of fuel.
Yeah, let's put Starship 1 against that Saturn V and let's just see. Because if you put the two side by side, then you can get a comparison of what you're looking at here.
I think part of the problem is the fact that they've got this huge landing, allegedly landing on the moon, which itself requires a lot of fuel. So they've got to carry all this extra fuel for this huge lander, and they're going to land it upright. We see the problem they've got with vertical landers today. They fall over. So the chances are it's going to fall over unless you land it exactly right. And how do you know the place you're landing has got a flat surface? You don't until you land. And then it goes whoo over. And you think, oh dear, now what are we going to do? Because you can't launch from a horizontal position if your rocket's meant to be vertical to launch. So I hope there's nobody in it when they land if it falls over.
Oh dear, oh dear.
There's no rescue. They haven't got a local mobile crane operator to come along and haul it upright.
Well, I think what they figured out is that if they simply, when they're doing all this fakery, that if they actually claim that they went there and crashed, then they don't have to continue with the fakery, right? It crashed, it's over. The program's done. If they actually have it land and it's supposed to be doing something, now they have to do all those simulations as well. Right? And it goes on and on and on, and it becomes like Voyager, right?
Yeah.
They have to hire a bunch of people to make all this shit up.
Was it 20 or 30 rockets to refuel the Starship coming back? I mean, Apollo didn't do any of this, unless we missed it. So what's going on, guys? Why is it suddenly such a major problem?
Okay, I just sent an image of Starship versus Saturn V. Now you have an idea of what we're dealing with. You put the two together, and let's just say that you could fit 4 fuel tanks full of fuel in there. I'm looking at the Saturn V, the bottom section there, and I'm just saying, for argument's sake, you could fit about 3 of those into that Starship there if you stack them and remove the tops. But still, that doesn't make any sense what they're talking about, all these refuelings, because that would mean that the Saturn V would at least need 5 refuelings, something like that.
The Starship is actually a smaller diameter in that picture than the Saturn V. And of course, the excuse that they had to use a heat shield when they were coming back from the moon to Earth to protect the command module is because they couldn't carry enough fuel to use a rocket to slow it down. They had to use a heat shield. I haven't seen the Starship practicing coming back at lunar orbit return speed. which is 50% higher than low Earth orbit return speed, which equates to twice the energy to be dissipated. So are they going to use a rocket to slow it down, as the Russians did originally, or are they going to use a heat shield, which hasn't been tested yet?
Well, they don't have a heat shield that can handle the speed of reentry now, let alone with the additional weight.
The Artemis 1 heat shield, or the Orion heat shield, was destroyed as it came back. Have they fixed it? Well, they got a new administrator at NASA now. The previous one got sacked. Isaacman.
You mean the new one? He already got sacked?
Yeah, Sean Kelly, something like that. Trump decided he was going to change him. I thought Isaacman was the one they'd chosen originally. But no, they got a new one now. What's he going to do? No wonder NASA's in a bit of a state.
And they think they're going to get a man to the moon in 2028.
Forget it.
Or they think they're going to have 4 human beings orbit the moon in 2028. Okay, let's say they do orbit the moon in 2028. Well, that means you can add 5 more years onto that before they even get humans near the moon. I still don't know why they didn't just put 2 humans onto that first Artemis 1 launch. It went around the moon and back. So they sent 2 astronauts around the moon for Apollo 8. Why can't they just do the same thing? They could have done that with Artemis 1.
Well, Artemis 1 carried a couple of dummies, didn't they? Helga and Zohar, there to crash test dummies who were there to measure the radiation levels.
Yeah, then they had that mannequin there that was supposed to be flying the craft. That's really going to work, isn't it?
Oh dear, there are so many things that don't add up. Either we're not being told this, or NASA don't know the answer to the questions that we ask, and it continues. So we continue to ask the question, and they continue to ignore it. It's quite legitimate to ask questions. So where is Artemis in that measurement of the space shuttle, the Falcon Heavy, the Saturn V, and the Starship?
Now we see the Saturn V, the N1, the shuttle, the Falcon Heavy, the SLS, and Starship 1.
There we go. Yep. The Saturn V is very nearly the same size as the SLS and a little bit shorter than Starship.
Yeah, because if you look at Saturn V and then you compare that to the N1, the Saturn V is actually taller. So why would the N1 need 30 engines and the Saturn V only had 5 engines? And then why does the Starship need 33 engines when the Saturn V only had 5 engines?
Very simple. They can't make an engine with the alleged power of the Saturn V engines, the F1, 1.5 million pounds of thrust. Each of the 5 engines on Saturn V had, but the N1 had 30 plus engines with the total equivalent, so they were about 200,000 pounds of thrust each. Starship much the same. Elon Musk can't make a rocket engine with the power of the Saturn V engines, the F1. Why not?
Perhaps it has to do with sarcasm, because in the last video we did, there's one fella in the comment section and he's saying, oh, you guys are lying about Elon Musk can't get a rocket off the ground and it just blows up. Well, that was called sarcasm.
Yeah.
You do realize that we're talking about the crew compartment. That's the rocket up at the very top of Starship 1. That's the compartment that holds the human cargo. All of the human cargo, whether astronauts or passengers or both. And that ship is the only one that keeps tearing itself apart or exploding. The Starship itself, with the 30 plus engines, it lands no problem. Or it has been landing no problem because that big arm has been catching it. But they don't seem to understand that while they're clapping and applauding, the cargo, the humans, are dead, scattered all over the landscape. So that doesn't really make sense. Why would you be applauding that? It's that ship that's sitting at the top that's going to be doing all of the landing, and it's going to be doing all the flying into Mars and all that other stuff. That bottom part comes back and it lands. It gets caught. That little ship up at the top is what's going to be landing. So here's my question. Where are the landing legs for that thing? It has 6 engines on the outside now and 3 on the inside. So those engines are going to be literally touching the ground and it's going to tip over. They haven't figured that part out yet.
Assuming that illustration is to scale, the Starship piece at the top which is supposed to be the one landing on the moon, is almost bigger than the space shuttle with its engines. It's certainly bigger than the shuttle itself. So it's a massive piece of kit. And it's supposed to be landing on the moon? Well, you've got to practice a few times, haven't you? Why don't you practice here on Earth? Land the thing on Earth. See how you get on there.
The only problem is that the first couple of times that it landed by itself, it either caught fire, blew up, caught fire, then blew up.
Oh dear.
And then a few times it landed without blowing up.
So that's why they had to use the chopsticks to catch it. No chopsticks on the moon.
Good point.
They're going to have to land the Starship passenger vehicle on uneven ground, unless they send a cat up first to flatten it out. A D9 cat is a very heavy piece of kit. It would certainly make a flat surface, but you've got to get it there.
Yeah, but what about all those bulldozers that Musk has running around on the moon with those blades on the front of them? I mean, those things, I don't know how they got there, but they just show up in these little CGI images and they're driving around all over the place. One of them's building all these little bunkers, and the other one is off there plowing the moon for a runway, and the other one's off there plowing it all straight down so the ships can land. But we don't know how they got there. Elon Musk must have a portal there somewhere in SpaceX where they just send all the equipment with those blades through, and they just come out on the moon on the other side, because we don't know how they get there.
That's the imagination part that they're practicing, not the reality part. I mean, anybody can come up with imagination about these things, but you got to make it work.
I'm just showing a bit of reality here.
Yeah, you are. That's an interesting schematic of the engine. Now, which engine is that?
That's the 2022 Raptor.
But anyway, there's that Starship there. And do you notice how it's sitting on the surface? It actually has legs that come out the bottom there on the side. And you see those pods? So you see on Starship, you see the pods there? There's two on the front and there's two on the other side, and that's how they land the thing. But do you realize how heavy that ship is? That thing is going to tip clean over.
Why do they need something that size? I don't get it.
Well, because he wants to send 250 people to Mars all in one shot. But he's going to lose them all in one shot, just like they've been losing every single one of them in one shot.
Well, there's a huge problem to get down a ladder if they're sitting at the top of that thing.
It's safer to do it inside.
Except that entire bottom section is going to be full of fuel.
That's true. Yep. But I still don't get why it's necessary to do the first landing on the lunar surface with something that's supposed to be carrying 100 plus people, 100 plus astronauts. Why don't you do something simple, like one that will carry 2 or 3 astronauts? It's far too big. Just copy what they allegedly did with Apollo.
Yeah, but you're forgetting one thing, Marcus. And that is that they still have to get the Gateway lunar station up there before they send anything to the moon with people on it.
Good point. Yes.
And the return fuel.
Yeah, you got to get the return fuel.
Because apparently Woody Woodpecker was wrong. It's not downhill all the way.
So the more that Musk changes the parameters of what he's going to be trying to do, just because he's made a very big Starship, doesn't alter the fact that he's still got to land it. And it seems to be changing the Apollo story. Apollo could send, this is the official story, Apollo could send a rocket with 5 engines, launch with 5 engines from Earth, get to the moon, detach its lander, land on the moon, return to the orbiting command module, then return to Earth. Now, if Musk isn't doing something similar to that, he has to explain why he's got a better idea, and he hasn't done that yet. It makes no sense. It's making increasingly less sense the more he's carrying on with his story.
Yeah, I just put an image in there, and it shows Bezos's little penis rocket right up against the Statue of Liberty compared to the space shuttle, compared to the other vehicles.
Oh dear. Statue of Liberty is a bit small, isn't it?
Well, that's the same thing with that flat Earth Dave. He had a chance to go to Antarctica, but no, he won't go because he says, I'm not going to be sitting with a pack of liars. But he won't go because he knows the truth. And if he goes there, his grift is over.
Well, Dave McKeegan went there, didn't he? And he was trying to demonstrate how easy it was to photograph with a camera on his chest. Except it wasn't on his chest, he was just holding it there. No, that's not the point. Point is, you've got to wear a full spacesuit which restricts your movement before you can demonstrate that it's difficult to take photographs using a camera mounted on your chest while you're wearing a full spacesuit.
Here again, he used a digital camera. He
Yeah, he
didn't
did.
use. Well, that's not a film camera.
He doesn't dare look at film cameras. Technically, they work the same as digital cameras in terms of the lenses and all the rest of it. It's the film that we're talking about, how the film is affected by the vacuum, not whether you can point it in the right direction or not. And you haven't addressed that. Dave, you have to address the effect of vacuum, a hard vacuum, on photographic film.
Well, Dave is sure fond of showing that shuttle photograph that was taken by Bruce McCandless on STS-41B, and Bruce was at a perigee of 307 kilometers and an apogee of 317 kilometers. Now, according to ChatGPT-5, he was out there for 1.5 hours. That's 90 minutes. From the time he left the shuttle bay to the time he returned, floating around out there with that MMU unit on his back, along with that Nikon film camera that was attached to the right-hand side of his shoulder. I would certainly like to see those original negatives and compare them to our negatives, because anyone can clean up an image. That's not hard to do. So we need to see those original negatives, Dave. That's your responsibility because you're the one that's calling us liars. Therefore, as MC Toon would say, bring on the evidence, Dave.
I put that little schematic back in there. We need to talk about how inaccurate that diagram actually is. If you look across the bottom there, you'll see, the 72.5 inches, 6 feet, 1/2 of an inch. The astronaut with the helmet on, everything should be about 6 feet tall. In the diagram there, that astronaut's only about 5 feet tall. The door's 32 inches. I mean, if you're 6 feet tall, you would have at least a 32-inch inseam on there. And if he was standing not on that box, that would be up to his waist, just the door itself. So it's highly inaccurate that way. And most of the other measurements are there as well, even though the measurements might be correct, but the diagram itself is highly incorrect. And of course, we showed that in the other video, that they didn't need to stand on anything to look at the optics up there.
No.
This is the kind of inaccuracies people are being presented with by NASA, and they just accept it.
Yeah, it's misleading. Yeah, one could call it disinformation.
Yes.
They're the surprise.
So it just tripped across this antique thing, and I was looking through all of the different sections of it. Of course, none of the links are any good. Here's just showing the honeycomb cartridges that were in the landing gear itself on the primary struts. And they're just showing a single honeycomb cartridge. Even the original PDF files show that there was two, a 4,500 pound and a 9,500 pound, two separate cartridges in there. And the 4,500 pound one, of course, allows the lander a cushion in lunar gravity for the weight of the vehicle. With the fuel tanks, the descent tanks would be empty at that point. So the physical weight of that vehicle landing on the lunar surface, just the weight of it for the one cartridge would allow it to compress about 10 inches, which means the bottom rung of the ladder being 32 inches off the ground would then be 22 inches off the ground. And then you have to take the crushable force, which is the 9,500 pound honeycomb cartridge, is going to take the G forces, and all four legs together would pull like 3 Gs. So each leg would handle 3/4 of a G to crush the other length of the thing, which would bring the ladder right to the ground if each leg reached 3/4 of a G. The thing is, when you're landing on the lunar surface, it's not level. Even though the attitude of the vehicle could be level inside the vehicle, the ground itself will not be level. So one leg is going to take more G-force than the other. And when you look at the documentation, they only show the total G-force of the vehicle between the different missions. Apollo 15 landing the heaviest, I think it's 1.8 G or something, total force, but it doesn't show which leg took the most force, right? One leg's going to take more force than the other. The ladder's still 32 inches off the ground, so they didn't compress at all in any of the landing. Now, like 11, 12, doesn't matter. The ladder's still 32 inches up, which means it didn't even take the weight of the vehicle and compress the first cartridge down. What's ionic is that the bell housing, if the legs have zero compression, it's only 19 and a half inches off the ground. So just if it just set down gently with no G-force and it compresses that 10 inches down, that means that the bell housing, the exhaust bell, would only be 9.5 inches off the ground at that point. And of course, Apollo 15, it actually crushed because it landed on a bit of the, well, when they were setting it down with the gantry crane, right, and dropped it and broke the legs off. I mean, it landed on the bell housing. But this only shows the single cartridge, and this was prepared for the 30th anniversary from the University of Indiana on that particular one. You can't go through this website. It's so antique. I came across this page by accident. If you go to the home page, you can't find this page again from there. There's no links to it anywhere. If you go to the space race, if you click on the space race, then it has where all of the equipment is currently displayed in which museums.
Yeah, I got that. Just looking through that at the moment. They haven't got the capsule there. They got other things at the Kansas Cosmodrome.
I clicked on the ones that have the fenders, the Apollo 17 fenders. It goes under Apollo 17 under flowing.
Apollo 17 fenders at the Kansas Cosmodrome.
Yeah, well, if you click on the Apollo 17 fenders, it's going to show you fenders, but those aren't the fenders.
Yeah, it's got the fenders. I see that.
Yeah, but one of them's a front fender and the other one's a rear fender. The short one's the front fender and the rear one's they claim they took the two rear fenders off, right? And that's in the photograph that they're missing. The two rear fenders. Yeah, they have display a front fender and a rear fender. And those are just the fender extensions. And you can see in the picture that there's a long one and a short one. One's for the front, one's for the rear. You know, when I look at those particular things like that, these are made from fiberglass. I mean, these ones look a lot better than what are ever in any of the other photographs, because the fiberglass work is a little different in these ones that are on display here. You can see the fiberglass matting on these ones.
Well, they have got pictures of the Apollo 13 command module. Not very good ones. Apparently, the Smithsonian have directions on how to display objects in museums. I wonder why that is.
How to display objects in museums? You mean so that they can make their displays more appealing to the public?
I don't know. It doesn't say whether it's better or not. It's just that they have a surprisingly low level of light illuminating whatever object is. I'm just looking at the pictures of the Apollo 13 command module, and it's very much in shadow. Hardly looks like it's been used. Maybe it hasn't. Oh dear, oh dear.
It hasn't been used?
There's no marks on it.
It's kind of dark looking.
It is.
Oh, I've seen some of the other museum displays where the rover had plain fenders on one side and the other fenders on the other side. When I was looking through the different ones in the museum stuff. Here, I've got the picture of the final resting place for the rover, which there are two resting places for the rover, one with straight wheels and one with the curved. This is curved. The rear fenders are missing. And of course, the ones in the museum are showing a rear fender and a front fender, and they only took the two rear fenders. Just another inconsistency. You know, that's like, did you see stars? No, we didn't see stars. Well, yeah, I guess we did see stars. You know, and if you squinted real hard, then you could feel the radiation shooting through your eyeballs, right?
You can see there the guy looking through there, guy standing on the platform. So I animated that picture. Remember, there's a guy in the jeans that he's standing there, you know. And it just goes to show you what he looks like when he's standing down, how we could see through those optics. And when he stands on that platform, what happens when he stands up, he bumps his head on the ceiling.
Yeah, it's neat how AI just knows exactly what to do for you. Yeah, well, that is just an anomaly that should not happen when it's a schematic. They're not thrown together with anybody with technical information. Somebody's just producing them. Of course, maybe they weren't able to because most of the actual schematics for the actual measurements of these craft were thrown away years ago. Like the entire design schematics are out of there. And then
Yeah.
we go back to James Collier was wanting to measure shit up in the museum.
Yeah, they wouldn't let him see it, would they?
No, because they knew that it wasn't an accurate representation of the
Yeah.
craft.
Well, they did allow him to see it. They just wouldn't allow him to measure it. And that to me is very sad. Very sad. Very sad.